Live from CNN Center, this is the International Desk with Michael Holmes.
French anti-terror police have reportedly opened an investigation into the killing of 3 Kurdish women in Paris who were shot dead early on Thursday. All 3 of them involved in the Kurdish rights movement, and the Kurdish community is protesting. The French Interior Minister says the women were, quote, without a doubt executed. Let's get more now from senior international correspondent Jim Bitterman, standing by in Paris. Jim, tell us how this all unfolded and what the reaction has been.
Well, Michael, it basically came to light at about 2 this morning, slightly before 2 o'clock this morning. During the day yesterday, some of the friends and colleagues of these 3 women began to worry about the fact they had not shown up at various destinations at various times during the day. Finally, police had to break down the door of the Kurdish Information Center, which is located right in the very heart of the commercial district of Paris near the Gare du Nord train station. They broke down the door towards 2 o'clock this morning and inside discovered the grisly scene. All 3 women shot in the head, 2 of them in the back of the head, 1 of them in the face and in the chest. And as you mentioned, the Interior Minister went to the scene right away this morning, and he didn't hesitate to call it an execution.
I came here to this neighborhood where 3 women were slain, killed, doubtless executed. This is a very grave matter, and this explains my presence. This is unacceptable. The investigation is only starting under the authority of the prosecutor's office, and the anti-terrorist forces are involved to shed all possible light on this unacceptable act.
And perhaps the central victim in this, maybe perhaps the target in it, was a woman named Sakin Kaniz, who is the senior member of the 3 that were killed. And she was one of the founding members of the PKK, the Kurdish Workers' Party, which has long led the struggle against Turkish authorities and other parts of Kurdistan for Kurdish liberation. And as a consequence, it's believed that she might have been the central target in this. She's a very controversial figure, not only outside of the Kurdish community, but within the Kurdish community. So police have ruled out nothing in terms of their investigation, including the possibility that this might be some settling of scores within the Kurdish community, Michael.
And how big is the Kurdish community in Paris, and what were the women's roles within that community?
Well, it's a fairly large community. 150,000 or so Kurds live in France, according to some of the estimates. They gathered, a number of them gathered immediately after word spread of the assassinations. And there were demonstrations. There have been other demonstrations during the day, and there are calls for a big demonstration on Saturday here. Basically, I think that these were very high-profile people within the Kurdish community, the 2 of them especially, and as a consequence, they were very well known, and I think people were just stunned at that this had happened in Paris. A number of the Kurds that were talked to said, in fact, that they were surprised. They wouldn't be surprised if something like this happened in Turkey or elsewhere in the Middle East, but here in the heart of Paris, it was a real shock, I think, Michael.
Jim Bitterman, as always, thanks for your reporting there from Paris. Now, one analyst says the killings could raise huge questions on the Kurdish side about ongoing negotiations with the Turkish government. For more on this, we're joined by Ivan Watson in Istanbul. Ivan, you've covered the Kurdish cause and the Kurdish fight for many, many years. Tell us about those talks that are going on and the fact that killings within the Kurdish, the PKK, if you like, not unheard of.
Well, I think there are fears that these high-profile assassinations could be an attempt to derail negotiations that have started within the last month and a half between the Turkish government and the jailed leader of the Kurdistan's Workers' Party, Abdullah Öcalan. The reactions to these deaths cannot be understated, not only within the European Kurdish diaspora, numbering between 1 and 1.5 million, but here in Turkey, where there are more than 12 million Kurds. The leader, a spokesman rather, for the PKK leadership across the border in the mountains of northern Iraq, he told me that he's condemning this attack, calling it, quote, an ideological and political assassination, a terror attack against the Kurdish people. Now, the main Kurdish political party in Turkey, known as the Peace and Democracy Party, has gone one step further. They issued a statement saying, "We bow before the memory of these three valuable Kurdish women politicians who dedicated their lives to the future of their people, so that the assassins of our friends, who are also soldiers for women's freedom, cannot hide, so that the murder cannot be covered up. We call on our people to rise up in protest wherever they are to condemn this massacre." Now, the Turkish government, it's important to note, the spokesman for the Turkish government has condemned the murders, calling them a savage act, no matter who the victims may be or whatever their character could be. But a spokesman for the ruling political party here actually suggested that this could be an internal Kurdish conflict that led to these deaths. Take a listen.
We do not have clear information on this attack in Paris yet, but when you look at how it was carried out, it seems like an internal settling of scores within the PKK, because it was not a raid carried out by the French government. It was carried out by unknown assailants. Let's wait and see what comes out of it.
A number of the experts I've been talking to, Michael, they suggest that it will be very difficult for the Kurdish community, the Kurdish political leaders, to move forward with negotiations with the Turkish government right now when this community has been so shocked by these high-profile murders.
And
Michael?
Ivan, for those who aren't perhaps fully aware, give a little bit of context to the Kurdish fight, if you like. It crosses borders, involves different countries.
That's right. This is one of the longest-running conflicts in the Middle East, which is no stranger to conflict and war. The Kurdistan Workers' Party first declared war on the Turkish state around 1984. It is a conflict that bleeds across borders into neighboring countries like Syria, Iraq, and Iran, straining ties between Turkey and the governments of those countries. Fighters move back and forth across these borders. Probably the ethnic Kurds in Turkey have suffered the most. More than 40,000 people estimated to have been killed over the course of the last nearly 30 years. Hundreds of thousands of Turkish Kurds forced to resettle as a result of the fighting in the blood-soaked mountains of southeastern Turkey. And we've seen just in the last 6 months, the protest movement by Kurdish activists have been able to grind daily life in entire cities to a halt when there have been disagreements between Kurdish leadership and the Turkish government. And a lot of this stems from long-term discriminatory policies by the Turkish government against the country's largest ethnic minority.
Ivan, thanks for the context there. Ivan Watson in Istanbul.